Rewrite questions. See, keyboard What is your age? What is your age? You first said that. Very good. 50. Huh? 50. 50 or 50? 50. I think it's 50 now. 50 was the remote. That's the remote. Okay. Why were you all absent the other day? Exam. You got your notebooks? So the other day we were talking about some of these concepts, no, chemical coordination, and we had finished with the first type of hormone, oxygen. So there we were talking about some basic functions. Today we start with the next hormone, that is gibberellins. We are talking about chemical coordination. We are already finished with the first hormone, that is oxygen, and now we start with the next hormone, that is gibberellins. Here, as I already mentioned, in this chapter, all these functions you have to remember. There is no theory principle as in case of the other chapters that we have to understand, but basic is all these functions and their differences. So I'll complete one or two at a time and I'll give you certain questions so that you get thorough with this. Let us start with the second hormone, gibberellin. So the other day already I told you, when we are talking about gibberellins, it is nothing but a chemical composition that you understand. It's a chemical. So this gibberellins exist in different forms. What are the forms? What are the types? GA1, GA2, GA3. This being the most commonly occurring. GA3 being the most commonly occurring. Where you are asked questions, what would be the location of these type of hormones, or which are the cells which are releasing these hormones? Your answer should be meristematic cells. Meristematic cells releases gibberellins because as it is, this type of hormones are inducing the process of growth, promoting the process of growth. So where would they be generally present? Now, the process of growth in a plant, where does the growth generally happen in a plant? Either at the roots, or at the buds, or at the shoot. So you have to understand which region of the plant will be having the maximum concentration. The maximum concentration will be either at the bud, or the stem, or the root. So these are the primary locations. Prominent functions you have to understand. What are some of the prominent functions? Let us talk about the prominent function. The first function to remember, promotes bolting. Try to understand. When we are talking about the first is promotes bolting. Bolting means in certain plants you will come across that as the plant starts growing, this is the young plant which is growing. Now this young plant, as it grows, suddenly you come across, okay, first of all, if this is the stem part, you have just put this plant in the soil. And this stem will generally have certain regions from where the growth starts, which are called nodes. So the region between the two nodes is the internode. Region between any two growing region is the non-growing region known as the internode. So here we are saying that this particular hormone promotes bolting. What is the meaning of bolting? Sudden elongation of the internodes. Sudden elongation of the internodes by what process? Cell elongation. Yesterday also I told you this. I talk about the plant cell. Say suppose I talk about the cell of this internode. This is the cell of the internode. What is this cell wall made up of? Cellulose. What will this hormone do? This hormone will act on the cell wall and result in the elongation of the cell wall. Elongation of the cell wall, and hence the growth, not process of cell division and growth. The growth is not by cell division. There will be some hormones which will induce, like cytokinin, we are going to learn. Cytokinin brings about growth by rapid cell division. But yesterday also you studied about oxygen. Oxygen also bring about cell elongation. And this also is actually bringing about cell elongation and then growth. So the process of cell elongation you have to understand. What does that mean? So the first function is promotes bolting. Next is delays senescence. The same function that yesterday also we studied about oxygen. What is the meaning of senescence? I told you yesterday. Aging. The normal process of aging of a plant. And if the gibberellins are present in an adequate amount in the root and the shoot and the buds, then the aging process of the leaves can be delayed. Induces parthenocarpy. This also we have studied yesterday. What was the meaning of parthenocarpy? Formation of the fruit without fertilization. Formation of fruit without fertilization. That is parthenocarpy. Induces parthenocarpy. Number D is something that we come across new here. Number D, when we are talking about number D, that's the first specific function that we are talking about. Now here, what is the first? What is this particular function that we are going to talk about? This actually talks about the function that is elongation of the stem and reverses dwarfism. That's a special function of gibberellins. Reverses dwarfism, meaning certain plants we may come across that in certain plants the growth was not adequate. Say suppose now I talk about certain roses or certain some lily or some jasmine I have planted, and in the first month or the first 2 months whatever amount of growth was expected, that did not happen. Maybe because of the secretion of the hormone or the nutrients was not adequate. But suddenly in the 3rd month I get to see that the growth is quite a lot. Yes, that happens. Quite a number of times, if you notice the small plants that you have in your window seat, you may come across that for the last 1 month or few more weeks, I've been noticing that they're more or less stagnant. They're not growing so much. But probably now in this monsoon, now that they get adequate amount of water and other different factors are all soluble, maybe the process of growth has become much more. So in monsoon you will come across certain type of plants growing much more. Again in winter you will come across certain type of plants growing much more. So again, environmental factor is one and the secretion of hormone is also regulated. So here we are talking about elongation of the stem and reverses dwarfism. Then number E, see the 5th function, induces maleness in certain plants. Induces maleness meaning, what is the meaning of maleness? Inducing maleness, allowing the male reproductive parts to only mature and develop. There is always a concept that whenever we are talking about plants, there are certain plants which may only have the male flowers, and there are certain plants which may only have the female flowers. So this particular type of a plant, now that we are talking about, they may generally induce maleness. That is what we are talking about. The 5th, 6th function does not remain important for you. We talk about the last function there. Breaks seed dormancy. Now this is again an important function for you. Breaks seed dormancy. Take this important function. This is an important function. Breaks seed dormancy. What is the meaning of seed dormancy? Dormancy means what? Quite a number of times. Now that the seeds are formed from the flower, no? The seeds are formed from the flower. Now that the seeds are formed, and this seed, when it comes in contact with the soil, it should get adequate temperature, moisture, nutrients, water, all these basic factors to start the process of germination. There are certain seeds, any of the factor missing in adequate amount, they will stop the process of growth. The process of germination would not happen. Any of the factors missing, the process of germination would not happen. Quite a number of times we come across certain seeds may remain dormant for months, a couple of years. Why? Maybe the soil was dry. Maybe the temperature was not that very optimum. Average temperature was not there. So in this matter, the seeds are very sensitive. The process of germination requires just the adequate amount of temperature, just the adequate amount of nutrients, just the adequate amount of sunlight, all these. So this is what you have to remember. Which hormone are we talking about? Gibberellins. Gibberellin is a particular hormone which can break seed dormancy. Next is we are talking about the 3rd hormone. We had already started this yesterday. Now we talk about the 3rd hormone. What is the 3rd hormone we are talking about? Cytokinins. Cytokinins. The function of cytokinins are a little bit different from the first two that we studied. The first function, all these functions are not very much necessary for you, just few functions you have to take a note. The first function that we talk about, this is a very, very important function for you. Cytokinins promotes cell division. Does it promote cell elongation? No. But is it a promoter or an inhibitor? Cytokinin, what did we learn yesterday? It's a promoter. But promoter meaning what? What is the meaning of a promoter? Promoter means a particular type of a hormone which can induce growth, help in growth. That is a promoter. Yes, gibberellin is also a promoter, auxin is also a promoter, and now cytokinin is also a promoter. But the method in which it helps in growth are different. How does cytokinin help in growth? Cell division, by the method of cell division. Which type of cells are basically affected? Non-meristematic. Non-meristematic. So even in non-meristematic, it can generally bring about growth. So just to remember that. वैसे तो auxins and gibberellins, what does this auxin and gibberellins do? Auxins and gibberellins can as it is bring about the process of growth in meristematic cells. Auxins and gibberellins basically don't bring about growth in non-meristematic tissues. So auxins and gibberellins actually don't bring about growth in non-meristematic tissues, but cytokinins does. Cytokinins brings about growth in non-meristematic tissues. So the first point remains very, very important for you. The second point is they are naturally synthesized. Okay, now next is we talk about the second and the third point are both not very much necessary. We talk about the fourth point now. It causes expansion of the cotyledons, cytokinins. Cytokinins, it causes expansion of cotyledons. So what are cotyledons? Do you remember what are cotyledons? Cotyledons क्या है? हाँ?
There are two types of them, monocot and dicot.
हाँ, तो cotyledons क्या है? The fleshy part of a seed. No, I talk about the pea seed. I talk about the pea seed. Say suppose now I'm talking about that the pea seed is there. The pea seed has got two parts, more like this. The pea seed should be having two parts like this. So this two parts of the pea seed is what we are talking about as the cotyledon, and then the radicle and the prelude. So these two parts of the pea seed, cotyledon. Expansion of the cotyledon, meaning right that the seed is formed, it undergoes a lot of transformation resulting in the formation of a green fleshy structure, but that green fleshy structure is not the leaf first of all, that is actually the cotyledon which stores enough amount of food, and then comes the radicle and the plumule from where the new plant will start developing. So ये जो process of formation and maturation of the cotyledon, expansion of the cotyledon, allowing the cotyledon to maximize its growth, obtain maximum growth. Which hormone does it? Cytokinin. This is a very important function again. Promotes chlorophyll synthesis. Promotes chlorophyll synthesis in the chloroplast. Promotes chlorophyll synthesis. Which hormone? Cytokinin. Promotes chlorophyll synthesis. And next is we are talking about inhibits apical dominance. What is apical dominance now? Those of you were there yesterday. What is apical dominance? I explained it yesterday.
Because the upper part of the plant, then they equal the lower part also.
So what I explained to you yesterday, what is meaning of apical dominance? This is a young shoot that I have planted. A young sapling that I have planted. Okay. So within a few number of days, some roots have come up. What should be the pattern of normally? What is the pattern of growth? The pattern of growth is it is growing tall, and the roots are of course getting spread out. It is growing tall, and it is growing tall. Just one or two leaves. Now it is growing tall. The lower part is almost getting barren. So what is the process of growth? The process of growth is it is quite growing tall, and the leaves are just few. And the young buds are always at the top. The young buds are always at the top. We don't get to see enough side branches. The growth is vertical. Lateral growth is minimum. So quite a number of times you'll come across in most of these shrubs especially, they grow for a for quite a long time, and then only they start giving rise to lateral branches and leaves. Same in the case of the tulsi plants. If most of you have tulsi plants at home, you'll see ultimately after a few more months what happens? The lower part of the stem becomes all sticky, barren stem, and the leaves are almost on the upper region. Apical dominance. So, Abhi, what is the meaning of apical dominance? The growth is only by the apical region and the buds are all at the apical region only. Okay. So now we are talking about inhibits apical dominance. So now whenever we are talking about this particular cytokinin, it inhibits apical dominance, meaning this particular hormone also allows. Now there are certain regions or growth regions on the stem. What are these called? What are these growth regions called? Nodes. So now this particular hormone, cytokinin, will also allow the growth of leaves and the flowers from the nodes. By inhibiting apical dominance, meaning it will not allow the stem to keep on growing, but it will also allow the sideway growth of leaves, buds, flowers after a particular period of time. So this is about the cytokinin that we talk about. Next is now the three promoters we have already discussed. What are the three promoters? Oxygen, cytokinins. Remember their properties. Next is we are talking about abscisic acid. Now we talk about inhibitors. Abscisic acid is an inhibitor. Now when we are talking about inhibitor, we very much understand that abscisic acid must be bringing about. Now, see, very simple to understand, to make you understand here is a particular plant. Say, suppose now I have planted some grape plants, grapes. Yes, the vine starts growing and then the grapes are growing. The size of the fruit is small. So, the secretion of the abscisic acid in these plants will happen much faster, because the size of the flowers and the size of the fruit is smaller. But if I have to talk about the mango, the secretion of this hormone will come a bit later, because the size of the flower, never mind small, but then the size of the fruit is quite comparatively big in certain cases. What about watermelon in that case? In case of watermelon, the secretion of this hormone will happen even more later, because the size of the fruit is much bigger. So here the comparison is, for any particular species of plant you talk about, it has got an optimum size of the leaf, flower, fruit, and also the height of the plant. So once that height, once that size of the leaf and the fruit and the flower is over or reached, the secretion of abscisic acid will start to stop the process of growth. So as I gave you three conditions, I gave you three examples. If it is a grape, what? If it is a mango, it is a watermelon. So it is never like this, that the secretion or the growth of the fruit has happened optimum and the secretion of abscisic acid did not happen, under rare conditions. Generally plants में ऐसा नहीं होता है. Where we come across, of course, this type of growth related disorders happen in animals, but in plants, no, generally not. So here what are we talking about? That once in plants, an optimum size of the leaf and the fruit and the flower is reached, the growth promoters will decrease their secretion and the inhibitor will increase the secretion. Now the growth inhibitors, because now they have to stop the increase in the size of the leaf and increase in the size of the flower. So that is what to understand basically. What are some of the functions? Let us understand about abscisic acid. What are some of the functions? Induces abscission of leaves and fruits. Inhibits seed germination. Now, when we are talking about seed germination, inhibits seed germination. This is also one particular hormone which may be responsible for dormancy when the environmental conditions are not adequate enough. Induces senescence. Now, senescence we had already come across. If I talk about auxins and gibberellins, what does it do? Delays senescence. Quite a number of times, plants where there may be a deficiency of one or two nutrients, the leaves may start prematurely falling down. The leaves may start prematurely falling down. So, when we are talking about a particular plant where the leaves have not yet grown optimum, should they fall off? No, they should stick to the plant and complete the process of growth. So, in that case, the abscisic acid is helping. But at the same time, also we understand a particular plant, leaves have completed their process of growth. The lifespan of the leaf is over. Will the leaf keep on remaining attached to the plant for a very long time? No, because the function of the leaf is over. The cell organelles have already carried out their function. Now the cells are not, because the cells also have a lifespan. After that, the leaf is almost non-functional. Now what will happen? The chloroplasts are all dying out. The leaf is almost becoming yellow. And now this particular hormone will help in falling off. Help in detaching from the parent plant. Falling off, senescence. Accelerates dormancy in seeds, already we have talked about this. Number E, very important here, stimulates closure of the stomata. Abscisic acid also helps in closure of the stomata. Under what condition that? Under what condition the stomata should be closed? When the soil is dry? When the soil is dry and the stomatal pores are still open to release the water in the form of vapor, transpiration is still on. So, when we are talking about under such, that's the reason this particular hormone is also known as a stress hormone for the plant. Something like the animals also we have a stress hormone. Animal hormones we have studied. Okay. Animal also, when we are talking about animals, पानी का गैलन ले लिया हाँ टर्नल का जोर से आके गिरा क्या हुआ क्या गिरा वाटर वॉच का इतना आवाज ये कौन सा वॉच है तुम्हारा इतना बड़ा वॉच आवाज तो बहुत ज्यादा था now when we are talking about what I said, stimulates closure of the stomata. Please take a note of this point. Stimulates closure of the stomata. Which hormone stimulates closure of the stomata? So I am talking about that this abscisic acid will always help in the stimulation or trying to close the stomata when the rate of transpiration is much higher, but the soil is dry perhaps. The xylem cells are not able to give away a amount of water to the plant, the leaf cells. So under such condition, it is possible that stomatal pore might close, reduce the rate of transpiration. What else? Under what different other conditions the stomata may close? When the carbon dioxide concentration is much higher, at that time also the stomata will close. So under different stressed condition. Okay, so this first 5 remains very important for you. The 6th one, not that much. Next is, we move on to ethylene. Ethylene is a particular type of a hormone which at times can be considered as a promoter, at times can be considered as an inhibitor. It's a mixed condition. So when we are talking about ethylene, let us see what are some of the functions. When we are talking about ethylene, the most important function of ethylene is it helps in the maturation of the seed, fruit. That's the most common function that if you remember. This is one of the hormone which is released in the gaseous form. Only one hormone which is released in the gaseous form. So ethylene, which is generally released in the gaseous form, majorly helps in the process of maturation of the fruit, maturation of the seed, fruit, like that. So when we are talking about some of the common functions, let us see. Mainly occurs reduction in the stem, elongation and acceleration of senescence. That means you have to understand ethylene also helps in the process of senescence. Ethylene is one such hormone which is actually produced in the plant cells at a later stage of maturity. Like oxygen is supposed to be there at the initial stage of growth. But ethylene is not to be there in the initial stage of growth. Ethylene is a finishing hormone, something like that. It is always necessary at the last stages of maturity. So the second point is very, very important for you. All of you should take a note of this. Name the hormone which exists in the gaseous form. Ethylene. You are supposed to write ethylene. And then next is when we are talking about the third function. I already told you it's a very important function for you. It helps in the ripening of the seeds, ripening of the fruits. Okay. Regulates many physiological processes. Okay, that is not very much necessary for you. So the first 3 points remain important for you for ethylene. The first 3 points remain important for you. Just check the characteristics in your book. Did I give out any points that I did not discuss? Any additional point is there? Because here in this there are many features of the hormones that can be discussed. But I'm just bringing it to your notice the main 2 or 3 that you should remember. The main 3-4 points that you should remember. Is there any other point that is missed out? Just tell me.
Increases the number of female flowers and fruits.
Which one?
Ethylene.
Ethylene. Okay. Okay, that you may take. Making the plant basically the female plant. Making the plant basically female plant. Anything else?
Promoting root growth and root formation.
Promoting root growth. This part. Promoting root growth.
And root hair formation.
Root growth and root hair formation. If I'm talking about, this is quite similar like the oxygen, where if you talk about a young sapling is there and a root cutout is there, you put it in the soil. If this hormone is deficient in that stem cutout, the roots will not come out. And that stem cutout from where you are expecting a new plant coming out, maybe in the 2 weeks time you get to see that it's like that. Okay, so that may happen. So for ethylene, the first 3 points are important, and addition to that, the characteristics of the female flower growing and the root hair formation. Now take 3 questions. Let us see if you are able to. Now this would be enough of revision. You have to read these points. You have to go through these points. Otherwise, many of questions will be a bit confusing for you. Right? Name the following. I'm going to give you this type of a question. Name the following. Name the following. The hormone. Name the following. The first one. The hormone which helps in maturation of seeds and fruits. Maturation of seeds and fruits. Maturation of seeds and fruits. Number 2, inhibits seed germination. Inhibits seed germination. You keep one line for writing down the name of the hormone in between. You can leave one line for the answer to write. Promotes closure of the stomata. Closure of the stomata. Closure of the stomata. Promotes closure of the stomata. Closure of the stomata. Number 4, synthesis of chlorophyll. Synthesis of chlorophyll. Synthesis of chlorophyll. Number 5, induces growth by cell division. Induces growth by cell division. Induces growth by cell division. Next is promotes bolting. B-O-L-T-I-N-G. Promotes bolting. Next is Number 6. Number 6. Induces apical dominance. Induces apical dominance or promotes apical dominance. Promotes apical dominance. And the last one, prevents or delays senescence of leaves. Delays senescence of leaves. Delays senescence of leaves. Okay, last one more I want to give you. Hormone acidic in nature. Hormone acidic in nature. Acidic in nature. Okay, just try answering some of these. Try answering some of these. Hormone acidic in nature. Acidic in nature. You have a doubt? Ask. Don't waste time. So that we can. Bolo.
Second,
What is that?
inhibit seed germination.
What is that?
Inhibit seed germination.
Inhibits seed germination. Inhibits seed germination is gibberellins. No, inhibits. Yes. What I gave you the first answer? Ethylene. Okay. Second is inhibits seed germination. Next is
Abscisic acid.
no. What is that? Inhibits seed germination. I said no. That is abscisic acid. Inhibits seed germination is abscisic acid. Inhibits seed germination would be abscisic acid. Third is what? Promotes closure of stomach. Abscisic acid. Fourth. That was fourth or third?
Third.
Okay. Fourth.
Synthesis of chlorophyll.
Synthesis of chlorophyll.
Cytokinin.
Cytokinin. Spelling should be correct, na? Cytokinin. Next is what?
Reduces growth by cell division.
Cytokinin again. Reduces growth by cell division. Cytokinin. Next, voltage. Gibberellins. Gibberellins, spelling you check. Double B, double L. Gibberellins. Promotes bolting. Then what else I gave you?
Induces apical dominance.
Induces apical dominance. Oxygen. Induces apical dominance oxygen. Next. Prevents senescence of leaves. Dono. Any two. But prominently which one? Oxygen. Prominently oxygen. Nice tune. Okay. Done with this? Bolo. What is that?
Hormones acidic in nature.
Acidic in nature. Acidic. Gibberellic acid. We call it as gibberellic acid. Gibberellins or gibberellic acid it is. Oxygen. So what are the 5 hormones that you have to study? Oxygen, cytokinin, gibberellins or gibberellic acid,
And then
abscisic acid, and cytokinin. Cytokinin we said, and the last is insulin. Now you may wonder when we are talking about hormone acidic in nature, gibberellic acid is also there and abscisic acid is also there. But strong acid, gibberellic acid is a strong acid. So according to both are acidic in nature. But when we are talking about the gibberellic acid, it is considered to be a more stronger acidic hormone. It is. So this is the first part of the chapter where we are studying about the 5 hormones, their basic features, differences. You will be asked in your exam also about some differences. So we'll look into the questions later. Now we move on to the next part of the chapter, and the next part of the chapter is about the different type of plant movements. Let us see now. What are the different type of plant responses? Yesterday, as I was discussing, that does a plant respond? How does the plant respond? So now here we are going to talk about different type of movements. And what are they commonly called? These are called tropic movements. Tropism. These are called tropism. What is tropism? That is what we are going to learn now. And the factors. Tropism. What are the factors and what type of stimulus and the response of the plant. So I now talk about the basic types of tropism in plants. Tropism in plants. So now that we are talking about tropism, what are the different types we are going to talk about? We are going to talk about phototropism. Phototropism. What is phototropism? Response of the plants to light. Response of the plants to light. This is phototropism. What else? We are going to talk about geotropism. What is geotropism? Response of the plants to gravity. Response of the plants to gravity. Then what next? We are going to talk about hydrotropism. Hydrotropism. What is this? Response of the plants to water. Response of the plants to water. Hydrotropism. Next is chemotropism. Chemotropism is response of the plants to chemicals. And next is thigmotropism. What is thigmotropism? Response of the plants to touch. Variety of examples, behavior of the plant that we can generally talk about. At least 1 or 2 examples you are supposed to understand. Quite a number of these. Now, from this part of the chapter, you will get diagram-based questions mostly. You will get diagram-based questions where the demonstrative diagram will be there in your paper and variety of questions associated. So that's the reason for every type of a response, I'm going to show you these diagrams which you will relate and try understanding. The first that we are talking about is phototropism. Let us try that. It's a very simple concept here. Phototropism. What is the meaning of phototropism? Phototropism is a concept where we understand how does the plant respond to light. Now that's a very simple concept. Just yesterday also I was telling you.
second one.
Geotropism. Response of the plant to gravity. Geotropism. So now that we are talking about the first one, phototropism, I said. For phototropism, what are we supposed to understand? The bending of the plants towards light. Now that they are bending towards light, they are growing also. Along with bending, growth is associated. So now, a typical example when we are talking about phototropism, the bending of the plants towards light. And as they are bending, we understand there is a process by which oxygens are also associated here. The source of the light and the process of the cell division, and we already studied just now that oxygens allow the process of growth by cell elongation. No? So the concept of phototropism and the function of the oxygen, they are related. So we learn here. So now that we are talking about phototropism, let us try to understand. I talk about a shoot. I talk about a shoot. Now, when this shoot is in contact with sunlight, we always see that the stem of a plant is there and it is bending towards sunlight. So what is exactly the mechanism that is happening? So this is the particular shoot that I am talking about, and this shoot is in contact with sunlight. Is the adequate amount of incident sunlight is there. Now, when adequate amount of incident sunlight is there, then the oxygen production is optimum. The oxygen production, the molecules of oxygen can be produced. But now that the oxygen molecules are produced, they have a characteristic manner of migration. How do they migrate? Whatever is the direction of the light, they would be produced all here and maybe in all these cells, but they will always try to migrate on a surface or the side of the stem which is just the opposite to the direction of the sun. Try to understand. This is what we call it as the shady part of the stem. Not exactly that the part of the stem is in shade, but we are considering that this is the side of the stem which is directly not in the direction of the sunlight as in this one. This is the surface of the stem which is directly getting the incident sunlight, but not this. So the oxygen production will happen here and they migrate this side. Now that they migrate this side, the process of elongation of the cell is more here. The process of elongation of the cell is more here. The cell elongation is more this side as compared to this side. And this is what is the reason for the bending. This is what is the reason for the bending. If the source of the sunlight would have been this side, then the bend would have been this side. The source of sunlight is here, the bend is this side. Why? Because your answer you have to write. The oxygen production happens on the surface, on the side of the stem, which is incident to sunlight or direct contact with the sunlight, but they migrate just on the opposite surface, which is on the shady part of the stem. And it is that surface at that particular side, the elongation of the cells are maximum, and that's the reason they bend this way. That's the reason they would bend this way. So now here we are talking about that what is the relation of the oxygen and the bending. I want you to take down this. Write one question. Write one question. See now the question there. What happens in the cells of the shoot of a plant? What happens to the cells of the shoot of a plant when exposed to sunlight? When exposed to sunlight in reference to their growth, in reference to their growth. Now, I want you to write down this. Just 1 minute. Write down this. But here we basically understand this is a form of oxygen. Like yesterday I told you, each of these hormones that we are talking about, now these are chemical molecules. They have got different forms. Now here we are actually talking about the specific hormone which is known as the indole acetic acid, which is a form of oxygen. But you will not write this. You will simply write oxygen here. You will simply write oxygen in place of this. Okay? You don't have all these in your syllabus. You will just write oxygen right after. Or the same answer will apply for what is the mechanism of phototropism, or how does the bending of the shoot happen during phototropism? Answer is the same. What is the mechanism of bending of the shoot during phototropic movement? For all these questions, answer will be the same. You will write in points, 1, 2, 3. If possible, just draw a rough diagram also. With this book. Yeah. Now, for each of these, when I talk about phototropism, let me now also talk about two words here. One is known as positively phototropic. Positively phototropic and negatively phototropic. Negatively phototropic. Positively phototropic, negatively phototropic. Now you understand what is the meaning of phototropism, phototropic. Now let us categorize parts of the plant to understand which part of the plant responds to light and favors growth and which part of the plant does not respond to light while growing. So that way we are talking about. The positively phototropic, I would understand that the shoots are positively phototropic. Yes or no? They are facing light in the process of growth, or the process of growth is in association with light. But if I talk about roots, is there growth in relation with light? No. Light has nothing to do in the process of growth if I have to talk about roots. Do the roots show this process? No, the roots are not showing this process. So the roots are negatively phototropic, shoots are positively phototropic. Done? All of you done with this? Now I talk about the next is geotropism. Very simple to understand. If I now have to differentiate, the primary part of a plant is the shoot and the root. Now, if I have to talk about what is geotropism, the response of the plant parts towards gravity. So we understand very much that the roots are responding towards gravity. That's the reason the roots are always having a tendency to move into the deeper layers of the soil, ground. But the shoot always move away from the pull of gravity. No, the shoots are always away. So now if I have to write down positive and negative geotropism, then what should I write? For the first category, what should I write? Geotropism and positively geotropic. What should I write? Positively geotropic, same category and follow. Positively geotropic, what should I write? Roots. Positively geotropic roots and negatively geotropic shoots. Just the opposite here. geotropism. Then next is we talk about germination of seed. Is it an example of geotropism? Yes, this is one of the best examples of geotropism, where we talk about the seeds. You just put it in the soil, and under all normal ambient conditions, what would happen? They would start moving. The radicle starts moving towards the soil in the process of, in response to gravity and the process of growth. Next is when we are talking about hydrotropism. Now the third condition is hydrotropism. Okay, first of all, let us complete here. For hydrotropism, if I again have to follow this, then what do I write? Positively hydrotropic. Which part of the plants? Roots. Roots always move towards the source of water, and shoots always grow away from the source of water. What is one of the simplest examples, the demonstration, the experiment to be done? Say suppose now I talk about, okay, this is a normal, the natural condition where I'm talking about a plant or a seed, I put it in the soil, and the roots are moving downwards in search of water, and the shoot is growing upwards. Can we do it experimentally? Yes, we can do it experimentally also, where I may take a beaker, this way, and then I put some those wire gauge, a net, a square shape of a structure which has got a wire-like meshwork. Okay, it is something like this, a square type of a structure which has got a wire-like meshwork. This is called the wire gauge. Now I put it here on the upper region of the beaker, beaker, and I take the beaker is almost 3/4 filled with water. And then here what I am taking, I'm just taking some seeds, some soaked seeds I take. Within a period of some 3-4 days, what do I get to observe is the radicals have started emerging out. After some time, some plumule also starts developing, but this radical is moving down. The radical is moving down. This radical is moving down, and it starts touching the soil now. Something same like if I talk about the seeds that we soak in our own homes, and the sprouts start developing, and they are always moving towards the source of the water. So now why is the shoot not moving towards water? Because it does not respond to water, and it will always move away from water. So now the roots are positively hydrotropic, shoots are negatively hydrotropic. So in your paper you may get this type of symbols also, positive, exactly the way of we are pronouncing positively, negatively hydrotropic. So either in the form of an experiment or under natural conditions we can talk about this. Next is chemotropism. What do you understand by this? Chemotropism. A basic concept of pollination fertilization that we have studied. What is happening here? The pollen grain comes in contact with the stigma. But this pollen grain, the type of the chemical substances which is present here in the style, if the pollen grain is able to get acquainted, or if the pollen grain, now get acquainted meaning what? I'm talking about that this pollen grain, if this pollen grain and this style and the stigma are of the same species of plant, then the type of the chemicals that they are producing is more or less the same. So that is what I talk about as compatibility between the pollen and the stigma. So if the pollen and the stigma are compatible, then what would happen? This pollen which comes in contact with the stigma will start the process of growth. Now it starts the process of growth, and this long pollen tube has to be formed, which is nothing but a process of cell division that is happening. But for the process of cell division, it is utilizing all the chemicals that is there in the style packed up. The style of the flower is always known to be a rich reservoir of nutrients, and these nutrients are considered as chemicals here, and these chemicals are utilized in the entire process of growth. So what I would say is that this pollen which has come in contact with the stigma can respond to the chemicals and show the process of growth. But if this pollen is of the mango and the stigma is of the style is of the rose, will the process of growth happen? No. They have to be related species or same species. No. If this is the pattern of growth, then I would say this is what is chemotropism, response of the plants towards chemicals. Response of the plants towards chemicals. So response of the plants towards chemicals would be generally considered as chemotropism, and the process of germination of the pollen is one of the best examples that you will remember. Thigmotropism, this type of a condition quite often you must have come across, especially when we talk about the climbers, creepers, no? The climbers, creepers, what happens? Since the stem, they are softer, they always need a support. And they would take the support of any other stable support nearby. Either that can be the stem of other plant, or a stick or a bamboo, or the grill, or the roof of the house, whatever. So now if in this experiment or in this demonstration, what has been done is that there's a creeper growing and very close they have kept a stick or a bamboo there for support. And it has been observed that the stem, as after growing a little bit, they start whirling and spiraling around the support and they are growing. They are actually responding to touch. They are actually responding, the plant parts can also respond to touch. So here we are talking about that, yes, the stem regions can respond to touch and show the process of thigmotropism. Show the process of thigmotropism. Heliotropism, do you have? I don't think so.
No.
You don't have that portion. So that is about the concept of different type of movements. The topic movements. Nastic movements you don't have in your portion. So now we have to just look into all these. No, nastic movements you have. Okay, nastic movements I'll take up in the next class. Do you have nastic movements?
No, not in
Huh? Not in therapy. Nastic movements are not there. So only topic movements we have. Now the questions we are going to do the next class. Okay. Go through this part of the chapter. See if there's anything that you want to clarify, and we'll do the questions the next class.
Thank you.